Dr. Vijay Sazawal does not need any introduction, but of course, for the sake of introducing him to all our guests today, I will just start with a little brief bio that I have on him. Prior to that, I want to welcome all of you. And I also want to wish you a belated happy Diwali. So I hope that you had a wonderful time with your families. So Dr. Vijay Sazawal is a political analyst and a commentator who specializes in local governance and intercommunity issues that affect the political dynamics within the Kashmir Valley. He has extensively and exclusively stayed in touch with the people who are still residing in the valley. These people have never left the valley, and he regularly interacts with that section of our society. He also interacts with the civil society in the valley, which includes the local politicians, the bureaucrats, the journalists, and the security officials. Dr. Sazawal has been invited in the past by the US administration, the US Congress, and the major policy think tanks in Washington, D.C. to address various aspects of the Kashmir problem. His topical commentaries on the local governance and political assessment have appeared in all leading English newspapers and published from Srinagar, namely the Greater Kashmir, Kashmir Images, the Kashmir Monitor, the Kashmir Observer, and the Rising Kashmir. His opinions have also been published by the Outlook Weekly in New Delhi, and he has appeared on the on the Times Now network and the Republic TV network programs multiple times. Professionally, Dr. Sazawal is a retired nuclear expert who advised the US government on the nuclear deal between the US and India. While professionally active, he has the highest level of national security clearance from the US Department of Energy. Dr. Sazawal just recently visited Kashmir Valley, and he has a very in-depth knowledge of the latest developments of the socio-political landscape there since the recent spate of killings on the ground. I welcome Dr. Sazawal. Thank you so much for joining us on this ZoomDub program. I, at this time, want to introduce our moderator, Mr. Sanjay Kaul from New Jersey. He is our co-director for the program ZoomDub. As you know, that we run program ZoomDub to connect the community on various social, political, and other critical areas of conversation, and have had multiple conversations with the top leaders and elites, as well as prominent citizens of our community. At this point, I am going to pass the mic over to Sanjay to start the program. Again, I welcome all of you to be in the program. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Dr. Sazawal, and thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you. Thank you, Archana ji, and a wonderful introduction. And welcome once again, Dr. Sazawal. And one thing I want to say is it's really a Friday evening. So we are very thankful to you and to everybody else who has agreed to join. Definitely true supporters and people who are truly interested in the topic. They are here today. So we really appreciate that on a Friday evening at a short notice. Video recording भी इस program की available होगी, जैसा कि काफी लोगों ने पूछा था. So that should not be a problem. And to get the ball rolling, as Archana ji mentioned in the beginning, Dr. Sazawal was recently to Kashmir, and he describes that as a fact-finding mission. And we hear so many stories about Kashmir from different media, magazines, platforms, social media. But ये आप सभी जानते हैं कि कश्मीर के बारे में सच्चाई बहुत मुश्किल से मिलती है. So we really have to be thankful to Dr. Sazawal, who has been such a passionate and a regular traveler to the valley. And he has been honestly sharing those findings and ideas with all of us on many different occasions. So शुरू करते हैं इन्हीं बातों का एक सिलसिला. सबसे पहले मैं Dr. Sazawal से ये कहूँगा कि just tell us about a summary of your visit. You know, where were you? How long were you there? Who all did you meet? And was it a first or second visit after Article 370 abrogation. And we'll also have a Q&A if time permits, but I don't want to take too much time. I just want to give the microphone to Dr. Sazawal, and after the synopsis, we'll go into the specific questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay ji. Thank you, Archana ji. Before I start, let me just say this, I'm speaking only on behalf of myself. I'm not, in my views, I'm not representing either the KOA or any other organizations that I'm associated with. I have not sought their permission or approval for this program, and these are strictly my own words. They will be, on that basis, they will be not as politically correct, perhaps, but I will state the things as I saw them. In terms of the trips, this was my second trip after the 5th of 5th of August 2019. The trip was lasted 5 days. It was a different trip because I didn't really spend a lot of time going to the traditional places that I do, which is to go to the hill stations and to go to the temples. Of course, I can't. I'm to the point where I have to think twice before I can climb stairs. So I stayed on the neutral ground with going to Kirvavani and Zitior and Durganag and that sort of things, just local environments. But I stayed away from, like, let's say, one of the things I used to do when I was in a good sense was to go to Zoology Temple in Crewe, which is a challenge. If you can climb up the thing, which is 10 times more challenging than, say, going to Sakrishwar. Anyway, I met a cross section of people. I'm going to try not to give the names because, as an analyst, my emphasis was on collecting data. And as an analyst, I'm actually trained as an analyst. I'm professionally a strategic management guy that basically was always, based his decisions on the basis of the data that we get, and the quality of the data really determine the quality of the decision. So if you go by that insight, and I met only the selected people with high level of confidence that they knew what they were talking about. And if somebody made a comment on one where there was only one sort of one response, I would call that essentially a singularity. The point being that it could be 50% right or it could be 50% wrong. But if two people told me the same thing, then its probability goes up, maybe 75 to 80%. And if it was 3 people told me that, then I know it's almost 99%. I can't say 100. For 100, you have to be an eyewitness, but it's pretty close to it. So I would say whatever I'm going to talk about lies in the range of around 70 to 90% confidence level that what I'm telling you is fairly accurate. Now, why did I take this trip? Why do I call it fact finding? Because as I said, I already talked to you about I was going after the find. But what motivated me was, of course, the targeted killings that started in Kashmir. And I think the part where which got me was when Shri Rahul Bhatt was killed, because he was killed in essentially in an office, in a government office,
Sure,
in a room which had other people in there
sitting there. Mm-hmm.
So you had to ask yourself, this is not a crime of passion. This is not a crime of Josh. This is a very, very deliberately, carefully crafted item where essentially, the target was well defined. There was, and then later, as I found out when I was there, a recce was done a couple of times, so they knew exactly where he is, which room he is in, what desk he sits on. So I told myself, I gotta find out. There's more going on here than simply, Pakistan, and jihad. There's something. So anyway, I started looking at the data from here, where I contacted my resources and followed the sort of path, and I ended up with a report. Ended up with a brief report, a 6-7 page report. And let me read you the 4 key findings that I found.
So just a quick question there. So this is the report that was circulated for the Indian Army. Is that what we are talking
No,
about?
this was a report that I did, which I did essentially for my own self, and I shared it with few friends. And from the few friends that I got, the feedback was that the Army people really liked it,
Okay.
and they ended up distributing it even further.
So is it available for quick reading, or is it still?
Yes, actually, it was printed in four different publications in the valley. It was I called one newspaper called Brighter Kashmir, Kashmir Classic, Kashmir Mountain View Weekly, and a summary of it was in Kashmir Images, which is a.
So let's have a gist of that if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the paper, but just before I got to that, but later I found out I found out that actually Army had also completed its own report on Kashmir situation. It was a 32-page report they completed, but they stayed at the sort of what I call at the macro level. In other words, they did a 5,000, 10,000 foot assessment. As a result of it, they stayed with their charter, which is boundaries, enemies, interdiction, cross-border terrorism, that sort of thing. They didn't get into the micro nitty-gritty of what is going on in the dynamics of the local valley situation, how that is affecting.
You're not going to succumb, right? Right.
So their report was also on targeted killing, but it was more on a broader scale.
So let's see your report. Yeah.
So they liked what they saw. Well, anyway, I'll do the four points so you can get an idea.
Sure.
So number one is targeted killings are facilitated by overground workers. This is a typical nomenclature they use, where essentially OGW is essentially a sort of a stepping stone, a conduit between what I will call the person who wants to be killed and the person who has the gun to kill you. So he's a middleman. The targeted killings are facilitated by OGWs with connivance of few anti-national mid-level government bureaucrats affiliated with Jamaat Islami, while most bureaucrats look the other way out of a concern or fear for their personal safety. So Jamaat Islami is very deeply involved. Number two, KPs were off the target. This is a very interesting point. KPs were off the target list as long as the supreme leader of Jamaat Islami in the valley was in charge of the resistance front, when he was heading the front. The period ended as the Supremo stepped down because of his declining health and eventually passed away. What that means is basically, as much as strange may sound to most people, Sayyid Ali Shah Jilani actually protected Kashmiri Pandits who were living in the valley, as much as he was actually doing a lot of nefarious things for other purpose and other. And I'll go more into that because that was the part which was very fascinating to me when I reached Kashmir. Then I say success in dismantling the terror ecosystem will depend to a great degree on eradication of the OGWs and their linkages within the official machinery. The effort is currently hampered by a disconnect between local officials and their non-local superiors. So you have actually a disjoint between, let's say, the SP Budgam and IGP Budgam, the district-wise different officers as well as administrators. And it's hampered by the policing architecture must change to effectively root out anti-national elements within the bureaucracy as well as on the outside. Number four, the security situation has improved because the traditional nexus between the police and politicians has been broken. In other words, politicians, chief minister, his gang would always control the police people and would always look the other way if they wanted some things done illegally. The situation will deteriorate to the detriment of minorities if the statehood is returned to the union territory without destroying the OGW bureaucrat status. And if that is done, it will spell doom for the minorities in the valley. So what I'm saying is that even if you keep the UT, but you bring in a political change from LG to a chief minister, it will have impact. It will have negative impact. But
it's an audio issue.
But if you go directly to the state levels, that will essentially, that's a death warrant for the Kashmiri minorities.
So quick question here, Dr. Sazawal, if I may. So your
Sure.
mainstay was in Srinagar, or you visited other rural areas as well?
I visited rural area. I went as far as of course I went to Ganderbal as part of Kirbani, but I went to Baramulla side also, and I went to Duru, all the way to Duru.
And the findings were pretty consistent across Srinagar.
Yeah, but of course, when we get to the detail, a little bit depth and detail, some of the things change, but by and large, for example, one of the things I found out was that essentially Ali Shah Jilani was the de facto chief minister of the state as long as he was in the peak of the power. These were all, these other people were simply, and you can understand so in a sense you can say the whole cabal, starting from governor down, basically looked the other way around, because they thought that was the only way to buy the peace in the valley. And in fact, my report talks about how that decision was made in 1996 by then the government, and essentially, at that time, you have to understand, India has gone through two very bad times in terms of their central leadership. One was when the VP Singh era was there, which was around 96 and all that. And very bad decisions were made when 99, when our community got hit. The other bad decisions were made after that when Gowda and Gujral were running the show. And that is when this decision was made. This decision was made to go and essentially, bring the governor's rule to an end and bring a government, a civilian government back in 1996. That decision was ended up actually a victory for Ali Shah Jilani, because he got a commitment that all the positions that Kashmiri Pandits are vacated and other jobs that were opening up because they were putting a lot of money in the valley, they will be all filled by his people. He will decide who. So
can we? Yeah. So I don't want to go too much back into the history, but in this trip, if you can talk about the kind of people you met, like you met politicians, police officers, teachers, government employees, in terms of the professional.
In terms of professionals, some people working at the secretariat, some people working, in business people, businessmen. I met with journalists. I had actually a 4-hour meeting with journalists, number of journalists that I used to, before, say 10, 15 years back, I actually created a number of groups there, because I used to go there very frequently, almost like sometimes even twice a year. I created various groups there, and by the way, the reason I was able to go is because as the advisor on the US-India nuclear deal, I used to get free tickets up to Delhi for basically meetings which were off the record, and then from Delhi all I had to do was to buy a ticket,
fly to Srinagar,
and be there for 2 days and come back, and I made a lot of trips like that. So I have a good repository of number of people.
Any politicians did you meet? Any political people?
I met lower tier people. I was supposed to meet actually with Altaf Bukhari, and but I found out he was in London. He actually sent me a message 2 days before. I'm sorry, I have to go to London. I will not keep my appointment. But at lower tiers, yeah, I send. But I tell you, the journalists are really the front line. They actually know a hell of a lot of what's going on.
Sure.
And they know ins and outs of these people. And not to again dwell on something, but one discussion was really something that was beautiful, in the sense there was a Kashmiri Pandit in that discussion who was defending Mahbuba Mufti. And there was a professor, Muslim professor, Kashmiri Muslim professor, who was tearing her apart.
Wow.
And it was so fun, because I looked back and I said, it took me back to the days of, Kashmir Coffee House, where those kind of discussions on Residency Road would be taking place between Kashmir Bhattas and Musman. But if you call me, I think that's one of the highlights that I will not forget, that particular interaction that took place, where KP is defending Mufti and KM is tearing her apart. But that's the nature of dynamics that you see in the valley right now.
So coming to another aspect. So I think we got an idea that you met a broad cross section of people, and the opinions are sort of a good, balanced or more reflective of the entire society. It is not just one person or one type of profession. There's a lot of talk about this PM package. I think we talked about that a few weeks back. How is that come? You want to talk about that a little bit? How's that coming along?
Sure. I actually, one of the things that I did, I actually had a meeting I had a number of meetings with Kashmiri Pandits who are in the valley. But in the past, I have mostly been meeting with Kashmiri Pandits who are in the city of Srinagar. This time, actually, I met with Kashmiri Pandits who are not from city, who are actually in Anantnag and elsewhere. But I also met with people who are in the PM package. And these are the PM package employees who are based in Srinagar. Now, what makes them different than the PM package employees which are outside is they all have, none of them get housing because there is nothing to be built. But there are a lot of places in the valley in the Srinagar to be rented. We have a lot of KPs.
Yes.
So most of them are, of the state. Some are living in Jawaharnagar, some are living in Rajbagh, some are living in. Most of them, of course, in Indranagar, which is kind of the main
safe area.
The name safe area. So I had to actually explain to them that they have been really deceived, I would say primarily by our own community leaders who have taken them to Jantar Mantar and this meeting and that meeting and candlelight march and all. I mean, it's one thing to show solidarity, which is right, which is the good thing to do. It's one thing to show your sense of dejection and disappointment, but it is another thing to make a demand for something that you cannot get. I mean, it really took me back when I was involved with a certain group in Jammu in early 1990s. I used to be a international coordinator for Pan Kashmir at the beginning of when the organization was formed. I was the international coordinator, and it took me a while. Again, the demands were made such that are absolutely not implementable. So I explained to them at length how this package came about. This package was not meant for smart people like them. The idea was when the package was put together, because see, the package became necessary only because people thought from 75, 76, 1995, after 96, 97, 98, that what will we do with these people who are from villages, who are in the camps? They are not educated, their children are not educated, they have basically nothing to go on. So we need to get something so that they can get back to their areas and then be able to look after. Well, we give them a job which has pretty much no responsibility, but they can take off and go and watch their fields, find out what's going on, all that. So those were really the reasons why this job at grade 4 were created. The problem is when the jobs were advertised, 1,600 jobs received 35,000 applications. So by that time, they had constituted the JNKSO selection board, JKSSB. And JKSSB people said, what should we do? Because our rules say very clear, we got to take the smartest 1,600 people in the election, in the selection process. And they said, hey, that's the law. You have to do it. Now, you'll say, why was this package made the way it was? The package was made the way it was because it was an exception. As much as KPs like to think they are the God's gift and all that, the fact is, in India is a nation of million mutinies a day, as V.S. Naipaul used to say. Yeah. There are people of all kinds of horrors going on. Can you imagine the horror of that village where in Rajasthan, where the punishment was that your wife and your daughters will be raped by another caste? I mean, that is even worse than death. So what I'm saying is there is India is magnificent, but the depth of depravity can go far beyond what has happened to Kashmiri Pandits. And so the idea is, yes, we have a problem. Yes, it's not all that important in the big scheme of things. Our Prime Minister is not thinking about it every day because he's got other 100 more
5,000 problems. Yeah.
And so the idea was at that time, this is not an exceptional case. So they had to actually run it through the parliament This is Shishma Chaudhary, God bless her. She's a retired bureaucrat, IAS, living in Jammu retirement. Doesn't want to talk to anybody now, though she talked to me at that time when she was working in 2008, and got the Supreme Court to agree on it, that this will be such a special package that it is tailor-made for these villagers who are going back and all that. So that was the requirement why it was put in, that these jobs have to be basically based in there. So I explained to these people that you're not going to get an exception, because the exception will take both the Parliament's approval and the Supreme Court approval, and we already know how Supreme Court feels about us. So I'm doubtful they will even bother to worry about it. So the fact is, let's not worry about that side. They say, well, 3 months they didn't do anything. Well, I said the 3 months, again, you people thought your pressure is, kept your salaries. But the fact is, the J&K has a law where it says you can be given permission for 3 months staying off the job.
So just to not go on, because we have some other questions.
All right. So the point is, I tried my best to explain to them that's a wrong channel. And people who are advising you to go that way, they're really not doing you a service. So anyway, this dialogue is continuing.
One question. So you're saying the package, it came mostly to the smart people. So the village people did not get as many jobs. Is that sort of line you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Okay. Let me tell you, I talked to a lot of people. Some of them are extremely sophisticated people. I even know people who left the other jobs and came.
But then why did they go to Kashmir and
well,
go
see, I'm glad you asked this question. To the point, everyone says this is a land of our fathers and our forefathers. Okay. This is a land that I'm not going to give up. I tell you, that was so inspiring. Every one of them said, at the end of the day, why am I here? I'm not here because I'm, making money. I'm here because I want to be here when we have to go to Tulmul, when we have to go to Sakrishwar, when I have to go to other temples.
A lot of heart and
absolutely. I have great regard and admiration for these people. As much as we had discussion where they're kind of, we're having a debate. I cannot but tell you that I have highest regard for these people. I think they are guardians of our culture. They are the ones who are protecting it, because for all I know, these people may be the only ones that actually will eventually be in the valley and be
okay. So I think this one could go on, but I want to cover a few more topics. So I want to, sorry if I interrupted you, but the next one is a little bit of a hot button. So I think a lot of people are, I think you alluded to that in the earlier part of your introduction. So views are your own. They do not reflect the views of everybody else. So I think, what are your thoughts on KP leadership in India, especially the one that is involved in Jammu and the NCR region that is trying to sort of, how should I say, affect the policy or contribute? Who's involved? I mean, we are in the US, we are, Monday night sometimes quarterback, right? But there are people there who are more involved and they see it every day. We see it through the media. So what are your thoughts on the leadership in India?
Well, my thoughts on the leadership in India is not very, very good. I mean, almost to the core. And I'll tell you, there's an institutional problem. The institutional problem is their desire to be on the networks. And the networks desire to have the kind of news which will get them the TRP ratings.
TRP. Mm-hmm.
So TRP is the game. So if you are not bullish bullish enough against Pakistan, and if you are not bullish against jihad and all that, you're not going to get 2 seconds. You're not going to get invited. and so that has become. See, I must say, that has its own place. That has its. You cannot deny that there are Pakistani elements everywhere. They cannot deny that there are jihadis running around, but that is not the Kashmiri Pandit story right now, as far as where our community lies. That is a broader issue which Indians have to face, and basically these networks are using us like the fodder. I mean, they are using us to make the pitch, so that makes it credible for them to go TRP. So that is in effect influencing the people when they say, give us some space in Kashmir. No, heck, we have space in Kashmir. It's simply a question of, how do we make it safer? How do we take care of the people that feel a degree of, there is a lot. I didn't, we didn't get into the primary. For example, I was going to tell you that people in the Srinagar do not feel the same level of insecurity that people outside this. And that's, that's obvious. So
and the tourism also helps.
Yeah, so we can go into detail. So there is the insecurity and all that. But the point is that at the same time, they also recognize that they have not been really on a daily basis being harassed in any way. I mean, everybody is basically treating them in the right manner. And if we want to go into the
so मेरा थोड़ा उसमें different है. मतलब I agree with you in principle, and I don't want to spend too much time on the topic. I think as a tourist, as a traveler, probably we do not feel insecure. But I would like to see maybe 10 non-Muslim families running successful businesses in Srinagar and not feeling insecure, or 20 families like that. I don't know if they are there, but I know many sold their businesses and left. Personally, I know. So if there are Trambus or whatever big Muslim families, are there any Batras, the famous, Punjabi? I don't think anybody wants to go there, or Mahajans from Jammu. There are so many Jammu business families. Why do not they have the courage to start a business in Kashmir? What is stopping them?
First of all, one of the big examples is the Dar Trust. I mean, DP Dar runs the best school in Srinagar, and to the point where actually Saifuddin Soz has put up another school with the same name, DPS schools. No, actually, there are many people who are actually opening up. I think one of the remember, one of the issues used to be in Kashmir was the issue of land. Land is this simply
but it was never for Jammu people. Jammu people would always buy land in Kashmir. They were
no. You don't understand. There was no land available for any industrial use until it was all filled up, because most of the land is green under green. Now that was done deliberately because what would happen is, if you wanted to then get release of a green land for them, that meant you had to feed so many pockets along the way to get a release. So essentially, it was every decision on land, about a canal or land or something like that, was made a cabinet decision under the old chief ministership regime. So there was no land available. So one of the things that did happen after post 5th August is there was land reform done, and actually the last major change happened on the 12/31/2021, when actually total dismantlement of all the previous laws were done. So,
but did you hear or see any non-Muslim families visible or talking about opening businesses in Kashmir?
Yes, I did.
Maybe it's
too
early.
I did, and in fact, I also met with people who are building houses.
Nice. Okay.
In Kashmiri Pandits who are building houses. So I mean, the mood today is a lot different. I mean, you can always say, some will, say, well, what is simmering underneath may not be.
We don't know.
But mood overall is positive. No, actually, even some of the Kashmiri Pandits feel that, there is still a lot of, angst under that surface. And again, one needs to talk a lot of discussion about it, because there is a faction of, you see, one of the interesting things that has happened is that after Sayyid Ali Shah Jilani died, essentially Jamaat Islami kind of fractured. And now it is basically, there is actually a pro-India Jamaat Islami faction, which is basically his faction, Ali Shah Jilani's faction. And there is actually a, more hardcore into the right of Jash. So if you can believe, there's a faction of Jamaat Islami to the right of Jamaat. It's almost like,
interesting.
It's almost like the group in Jammu, which is to the right of BJP, UTT, the right. So essentially you have the same thing over here too. And what's happening is that the Jamaat group is actually mainstreaming itself. It's actually joining PDP. So PDP is having large, and government is encouraging it. The Indian intelligence, Indian deep state is actually encouraging it, because they want to see these people rather be in a political, discourse rather than be outside the political discourse, so that that raises the militancy factor even higher.
Anything you want to talk about? This is again very little bit of a hot topic, and BJP, and what are their views of KPs in the valley? When you talk, I mean, you didn't meet any.
Yeah, well, see, actually, Amit Shah has met with Kashmiri Pandits, at least I know 3 times, where only Kashmiri Pandits were present. The meeting that took place, first meeting took place with only BJP officials. This meeting took place on the 26th of June 2019. So it was before the August 2019.
Yeah.
And in which he told them, Kashmiri Pandits I have not forgotten them, but I have an order in which I want to do things. And I want to do first because I want to be sure that whatever I do with Kashmiri Pandits ends up to be a safety factor, ends up to be a safe decision. So he said at that meeting to them, well, first of all, he didn't even talk about it. He basically talked about how surprised he is that Kashmiri Pandits don't vote at all and all that. And then he gave a lecture about how, he even told these BJP guys that even if you vote for Congress, that's better than not voting at all, because that will give you political identity. If you don't have any political, then he gave them example of how Muslims, even though they will not win all the seats that they vote for, but it establishes their political visibility in India that Muslims are voting. You guys aren't voting. So he went through that process, and we had a follow-up after that. I will not get into it with All India Kashmiri Samaj and all that, which failed because Kashmiri Pandits don't want to do like that, things like that. Anyway, after that, he basically said, listen, my number one goal is to integrate Kashmir through constitutional means. Now, he, of course, didn't tell them he is already working on it. And 3 months later, you will see the result. He said that was number one. Number two, he said, was to ensure the security is completely settled down. I want to finish off terrorism. I want to finish off all the violence. And because I know number 3 and 4 will not happen until 1 and 2 happen.
Yeah.
So they said, what is number 3? Number 3 is, after that happens, I'm going to have economical revival. I'm going to put a lot more money. We're going to really attract a lot of people from, business houses in India and all, because I can't tell them to come until the violence factor is not gone, but that's when they will go. And the fourth step will be, I'll have Kashmiri Pandits back here. So, so you can argue on one side, yeah, he has got a plan, but it won't bring me back. But it's also, he said in the third meeting that actually, don't know hardly how many Kashmiri Pandits will go back. But that's the plan he had. Now, in the second meeting was very interesting because he met there with essentially a couple of groups from Delhi. This was on February 18, 2020. And this is after and they had this litany of issues like we want advisory council, we want genocide, and he went through each one of them item by item and explained to them why it cannot happen. And in that meeting, he also said something that was later quoted elsewhere, that he talked about 8 safe clusters, which actually he was given a paper which he actually misused, because that they were talking about having these transit housing that they're building in Sheikhpura and Vasu and all, having that in 8 different district areas. So so some of these, but he used the wrong language. He said, these will be sort of safety zones and sort of that.
But anything you heard by talking to people in the valley this time that BJP is a tough party on them, or like any people had some?
No, by and large, most people dismissed BJP's presence footprint in the election, right, in the valley. So they think if they even win 1 or 2 seats, they're lucky. Sure. The general feeling is it's really for National Conference to lose. They will be the ones that now it's a very interesting. I also heard National Conference was doing its best to woo Amit Shah and get on his team, and which Amit Shah welcomed. But this is the I'm now giving you a rumor. I'm not. There's no data point on this. Yeah. I'm giving you the rumor, and they said, but his condition was that you get off those cases off me. I don't want those ED cases that are against me. And supposedly Amit Shah is supposed to have told you, I can't do anything on that. That's between you and ED. If you want to come on board, fine. If you're not, so he has gone back. So he is basically vacillating. He's not. This was the period. If you remember, this was the period when he said, "I'm not going to stay with this what PGD and whatever, and I'm going to have our own people on it." So he's kind of vacillating because he would like to obviously have those cases somehow be withdrawn, and he didn't get a good answer from Amit Shah.
And in general, like this Union Territory, Ladakh, and Did you discuss those things, like
Not
Ladakh?
not really. I think during the time right after this thing, Ladakh had a big demonstration. But that's primarily the people from Shia faction. By and large, I think that is settled as a UT. It will not really change. I think that's pretty much set.
But personally, I feel great that Ladakh is separate, and I really feel as a region, it might actually see some money and funds going,
Yeah.
and the Kashmiri politicians will not take away the money. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I agree with you. The thing that where people are missing out is that who are wasting time on thinking that Jammu is going to be separated from Kashmir. That's never going to happen. That part is that has such severe security implications that they will never
It's a lot more complicated also.
Yeah, besides being complicated, but from a security point of view, I talked to Army about that quite a length. They said, hell, there is no chance that will ever happen.
What about Jammu people? Do they want to be separate from Kashmir, or they?
No, but it's a favorite topic of it's a situation which is, as I told you, it's JKUTT, which is a group which is to the right of BJP. I mean, they think Amit Shah is a weakling who is sort of kissing the asses of Muslims and things like that. So you have to understand there is a group like that over there.
Even more right wing than Amit Shah.
They more right wing than Amit Shah. I mean, and they are grabbing. Actually, you won't believe it, but they are grabbing a lot of KP. What to me, what is so sad is that wing of the KP politicians or political group has poached a group of the Prime Minister's package employees in Jammu, and they are influencing them. And basically what they're doing is they're showcasing them in Delhi so that they can embarrass the Modi government, saying how KPs are unhappy with Modi. But the truth is, that's a losing faction, because they are not really, at the end of the day, they are more political than realistic in terms of what they want.
So, एक और बात पूछना चाहता हूँ आपसे. Law and order generally you felt in the valley was pretty decent.
Law and order, and one of the reasons, as I said, one of the reasons is because the law and order reports directly to the Home Ministry. It's not politically thing. The only political element that I found out was the lack of investigation, quite frankly, proper investigation in killings of Kashmiri Pandits.
Was not done properly.
And there's a reason for it. I'm not going to go into that. I found out there is a reason for it, because as I said, for Kashmiri Pandit killings, and there have been 5, and there have been additionally there have been 3 attempts, where one was actually not attempt at a person. He just happened to be there when the grenade was thrown. Other 2 were attempts which were made at the people, like Mawa, Mr. Mawa and the other guy, and the
Bindra.
No, Bindra was killed. I mean, the Balkrishan. He was a Balkrishan from. He was a medical shop owner in Chottegam, and in all cases, let me make it very simple. In all cases, somebody wanted them dead. Then he basically approached an OGW, and OGW basically arranged the kill from a killer.
So it was
money was transmitted, and now you'll say, why did the guy who initiated the kill, why did he do it? There are very simple and very complicated answers to that question. I'll just leave it at that. But my assessment was that these are not random killings. These were killings done with recce, killings with purpose, knowing purpose. Now, of course, they are now having 2 new terms have come out. One is hybrid militant. Hybrid militant actually is an OGW who carries a weapon. So he doesn't actually go to a militant. He actually is carrying the weapon. And the other one is a mole. And moles are becoming very, very important. Mole is actually the person that basically transfers the guns between various people, and more importantly, that transfers drugs between from the Pakistani side to the Pakistani drops to the people there. And now we haven't discussed the drug issue, but at some time, if you want to talk about Muslim issues, I can bring up that issue.
So I heard a lot of allied services like Kashmir Civil Services and Revenue. So a lot of those jobs have been taken by non-Muslims also are there in big numbers. Is that correct?
No, it's not a big numbers. It's not a big number. The fact is you know, the jobs for which there are now, you know, exams are
Horrible.
basically are open to everybody. I mean, even though domicile law has changed, I mean, there are I should say there are like you know, like 3 or 4 elements that are really key to understanding why there is angst in the Muslims. And you know, one of them obviously is the elimination of Article 370, because Article 370 really, at the end of the day, we found out was really their passageway for Pakistan to control
Correct.
Kashmir. And there's no if and but about it. This was the biggest single, you know, as I said, biggest single failure for Pakistan. They actually finally got defeated on Kashmir. As far as I'm concerned, 5th August 2019 will be the day actually Pakistan got defeated in Kashmir. But there are other issues. The one of the big ones is digitization of revenue records, and this is a process that started in 2015. And Patwaris are tooth and nail fighting against it. I mean, as somebody told me, here's the tragedy of Kashmiri Pandits. Kashmiri Pandits in the valley is a witness to everything that has happened there. If somebody's land got stolen, he knows. If somebody killed somebody else, he was a witness. So even a famous quote from actually one of my friends there, who told me that one day Yasin Malik told him that I am not afraid of Indians, police or army as much as I'm afraid of Kashmiri Pandits. And this guy, poor guy, told him, but why? He says, because you bastards know everything. I'm sorry for the language. He said, you guys know everything. So in a sense, that's a big burden Kashmiri Pandits have. The ones, you know, ones who have the land, the ones whose land has been stolen, or the ones who are neighbors of the land. Because, for example, when the records come out, and the records will show Ghulam Muhammad owns the next piece of land, and you know, Sumnath says, no, that is this Kashmiri Pandit who left on that day. He never sold the land. So
I mean, that is something, you know, unless the justice is served, that kind of feeling will never go away.
So you have the land laws. You have the sales that is taking place. So, and then last but not the least, Kashmir Files.
Yes,
hear about it. Kashmir Files has created a great sense of insecurity there among Kashmiri. Actually, in fact, Kashmiri Pandits listed that as the #1 point when they showed concern about from the non-valley KPs who are affecting them. They said that was the #1 concern they had, and they said, you know, as much as it's a historical capture of what happened to us.
So in general, Muslim people did not like the movie.
No, their point was that there was a political element in the movie. Why did it have to say about Article 370? Because all Kashmiri Pandits said, and I'm a witness to that because I was also in the valley in those days. I mean, it was not a big thing for Article 370. Had no place in the discussion on you know, when we were talking about we are second-class citizens. I'm not getting job, I'm not getting education in the original engineering college. I couldn't get a seat even though I was 9th in the university. That kind of thing. We were talking about those kind of things, promotions, jobs. That was
on Article 370.
We never talked about. I mean, BJP might have been talking, but BJP was a tiny faction at that time.
But it was always BJP's agenda. It was always on their platform.
It was their plan, but it was not. You know, the movie made that as one of the key points, and I think that they're not getting any support from Kashmiri Pandits. I can tell you on that point. In their discussion, they also agree with Kashmiri Muslims that part of the movie is really not right.
But other facts were.
Well, then the problem is, if you make them, you know, admit it, they have to admit it by themselves. Some will, and some
will not.
say. I remember. I'll tell you one thing. One journalist goes up to, you know, this Rajendra Premi. Rajendra Premi's father, you know, and his brother were badly affected, and so there was a ceremony where his father is being recognized now for the schools and all that. And that fellow the journalist comes to him and says, you know, Rajendra ji, isn't that film mein jo unhone makan dikhaya, wo aapka makan to thi na nahi tha na? Usse nahi tha. I mean, he doesn't tell him, damn it, this is not a documentary. This is a movie. You cannot have the same movie. But that is the kind of mental thinking the guy, the journalist, is trying to sort of justify that the movie is fake by saying that मकान वही नहीं था जो आप इसमें आप रहते थे.
So if I want to talk about three things for KPs in our listeners, which is good and positive as we come to the end of the program, it's about an hour, I think, almost. So I want to wrap it up by three things or five things, whatever comes to your mind, that are positive, going forward.
Well, first of all, let me give a couple of good news about that place from the natives. As I said, there are people building houses. Second, there are marriages taking place between the families who had never left the valley.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And there was a third marriage on December. As much as there are marriages outside in India in December, first week of December, there are marriages in the valley too. I got invited to 3 weddings, and too bad I couldn't be there. But so you are seeing a organic growth of the community there. At the end of the day, they may be the only ones who will end up propagating. But I think there is a broader cause. I mean, people are very sentimental about whether or not what to do. Should we go? Should we not go? I think I don't think you have to have a selfish reason like my house is gone and so why do I care? I don't think that is a good reason, at least in my mind, for not going to that place. I mean, we did a great disservice to our community by having these, Kheer Bhavanis outside in Faridabad here and there. I mean, they are not. They don't have any history. They don't have any legacy. The Mata never touched those places. How can we even name them? So
I agree with you.
I once took even some leaders of ours in India to London, where I introduced them to Jews, and Jews told them very clearly, we never duplicate any of our temples outside of Israel anywhere else with the same name. If we do, it will be destroyed. And I believe going and being there, going back to your land, taking your children along, showing them where you are from, where you were from, and the fact that yes, we that's part of the tragic part is part of our story. But we are not. We are a people of who resurrect ourselves. We are educated people who. But I don't think we ought to give up on Kashmir. That's my message. We are to stay in touch. We are to be part of it, and I think that is actually the best way to defeat the Islamic element which is up there. They used to have one of my friends there, Bashir Assad. He actually did research and all. He found out when the Kashmiri Pandits left there, the Muslim the Hizbul Mujahideen and Jamaat Islami, they actually branded the land and the houses with the Islamic name. In other words, these are Islamic properties for the welfare of the Muslims. So don't touch them. Except, of course, these are the guys who actually bought them. Most of the houses, by the way, have been bought by Jamaat Islami and Hizbul Mujahideen people, and they used to name the price. And the same thing. But they also, by the same token, tell me one of the most demoralizing things for them was to see government of Jammu and Kashmir build on butter land, on the land that was well identified as a KP land. Their food shops and other government stores and things like that, and that land was never sort of compensated by the government. So as much as I want to blame them only for it, the state government was equally a party to that loot of the Kashmiri Pandit property that took place. So it is a complicated problem. It is a problem where Muslims are guilty, where every party is guilty. And I think we will be guilty too if we just forget about that place.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of facts and great understanding of quick 1 hour. It's not enough. I get it. I think a lot of people have been asking questions. I don't know how many we can ask. Archana, Neetu, do we have a lot of questions or let me see. I don't want to hold everybody till very late.
We have 3 questions.
Three only. I think some of the questions I see here have been addressed by Dr. Sazawal anyway. I'm thinking, I think there's one question I can see. This is by Rishik Dhar. Are there any mechanisms by which the KP diaspora engages in Kashmir? I think you alluded to that. Maybe you can
Well,
talk.
I not as much as I would like to. I think one aspect I didn't talk about is there is actually a movement going on within the valley by some people, some Kashmiri Pandits only, who have retired people who have come back, some with the army background. And they are actually trying to create this vision in Kashmiri Pandits that there can be jobs outside of the government. And they are really trying to get them to think in terms of starting businesses, be incubators. So this group is trying to be incubators for bringing jobs so that Kashmiri Pandits don't have to depend, all the Kashmiri Pandits don't have to depend on the government for the jobs. And that group has just started. And I think, there are people here also who are actually encouraging that thought and seeing how we can help that process. I think maybe KOA will, or some people from KOA will get involved in that process. But that is a worthy process, and we need to, we can follow up on that. And I think, as I said, there is a grassroots movement going on to essentially give people, Kashmiri Pandits, an option to look at other things. See, part of the problem is, Kashmiri Pandits still are very much conditioned by government jobs. To them, government jobs is, is going to be.
I think one point you said, like Jewish people, I think maybe, and I think COVID kind of created problems. And I'll say that in the closing, then I'll hand it over to Archana ji. I mean, like a lot of Jewish people in this country, they have a mission about visiting Israel once in 3 years, once in 4 years, doing some social work. And I think something like that can be done to stay connected, and the housing and all that stuff will happen eventually in our lifetime or later. But even Kashmiri kids or in Mumbai or Chennai or Bangalore, I mean, there should be some kind of a association of, 5 religious places in 15 days or 4, something like that has to be done. And who will do it? I don't know. KOA can also do it, but I think we are 1,500 or 1,800 families, whatever. But a large population of successful Kashmiris is in Mumbai, Chennai, and Bangalore. So some kind of visit should happen with a purpose to see Kheer Bhavani or purpose to see, specific temples and monuments, which are heritage of Kashmiri Pandits. That's something Jewish people do very, very actively.
I think our community leadership has to grow up. They have to go beyond this political gimmickry and getting the headlines every day. I think they have to think more in terms of strategic terms, not to be in a position to lose their connection with our.
Not lose the connection. That's the thing. And housing and all that is separate, but not lose the connection. With that said, thank you very much. Let me just say thanks to Dr. Sazawal, and I'll give it to Archana to say the closing remarks. Very informative, lovely time, great discussion, and thank you very much. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for such an enlightening discussion, Vijayji. I know that you only superficially touched on so many points. There are so many moving parts. And like you said, that this is a complicated situation. And you have just only barely, we have started talking about this, and I'm sure that we'll have many more discussions. One of the things that I want to touch on is that how can we, the overseas KP community, like you said, that we make temples, Kheer Bhavanis and this and that outside of where, they originally are from. But the best thing that we can do is that we encourage our youth to go back to the valley. Well, one of the challenges, of course, is that the security is always, a concern on everyone's minds, especially the parents. But we could certainly start, with, some small program, maybe a religious heritage tour, maybe an internship and stuff like that, where in summer we can take 3 or 4 students that who will be, of course, will have mentors with them. So there's so many possibilities if we do it right. And of course, we will need the support of the locals there. Locals, by that I mean that it would be probably the administration or perhaps the local KP community who are established and who can make it happen for us. So
I'll beg they are different. I think the best thing to do is to take one of the reputable travel agencies, because I talked to a lot of tourists there. I mean, the place is swarming with tourists, left, right. You turn around. I mean, I used to go to Kirivani, and I would be probably one or two families there at most. I mean, today was literally crawling with people. And again, I talked to people. Of course, they're all from Telangana, Karnataka, Bangalore, Calcutta. And I would ask everybody, so where are you going next? They say, we have no idea. All we know is that our travel agent in Coimbatore or Bangalore or something like that set us up with this guy. He showed up at the train station or whatever, and we are in his hands, and they're doing a lovely job. They're taking us for this tour everywhere. So it is a big business now. You cannot, nobody can. That is our best security. The business element of it is so successful.
It's interesting.
In fact, I would argue that maybe some adults should be able to take their first tour and see for themselves before they decide their children ought to be going. And all it needs is a reputable travel agency. And this time, by the way, this was the first time I went when I had no security. I normally used to get security. But this time they said, Vijay, trust us. If you feel you are threatened anyway, you let us know. But right now, go wherever you want. And only thing I said, well, the how about the driver for the car? Is it not even that necessary anymore? Just get a driver and you're on your own. And I was on my own. I mean, totally on my own. I mean, I'm sitting in the Lal Chowk. I sat on the platform, and nobody cared. I mean, I had Tika, I had my Nairvan. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. There's so many people.
Right. So we have, I know at least two people here. One is Sanjay Kaul from Kakani, and he, has many, I guess, that business or whatever area of work that he does in Kashmir. He has been working that for the last 2 years, and I would like him to comment. But we also have Rajiv here, Rajiv Pandit, who visited Kashmir and actually had a nice family vacation there, maybe about 5 or 6 months back. And wow. I think that your parents also were in Kashmir. So firsthand, experience as a visitor there, as a tourist, I guess. So I would like a very short perspective of Sanjay ji, you working there on the ground, because you do have projects like Abhinagupta project that you're doing in the caves of Berua. And Rajiv ji, you, as a tourist, what was your experience? And maybe Sanjay ji can talk first briefly, and then Rajiv, please, you. Sanjay ji, you're on mute, please.
No,
Sanjay ji from Kakani Foundation, sorry. Sanjay ji, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Sanjay ji, you're on mute. I'll let Rajiv talk first, if you don't mind. Till then, we'll come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I did visit the Valley. I actually also went on a partial fact-finding mission. I spent a lot of time talking to military, political officials, the intelligence, and I have very similar. I echo exactly what Vijay ji said. In fact, he and I debriefed with each other. And the narrative on Kashmir is very different than what we have heard here as KPs. I will just say that I think we all need to visit, see with our own eyes and ears. We are getting brainwashed by the media itself, and for all the reasons that Vijay ji said, there's a lot of opportunity for us. I was surprised by how many KPs are there, how many are getting married, how many are going back and having businesses there. I think there's a lot more that we can do than we think, because we're still constrained by what we hear over here. So I think that doing a trip there with an agency is a great idea. So I'm all for it.
Thank you, Rajiv ji.
I when I was there, guess whom I meet on a day? Rajiv's parents.
I know. The small world.
The small world.
No.
And they all felt very comfortable, very open. Srinagar has changed dramatically in the past 3 years.
It's so encouraging. It's so encouraging to hear all this, honestly. And the revival of our community, the marriages and all the other festivities happening there. So really it's kind of a
I'll just say one other thing. We don't hear about those, and the unfortunate thing is we are only hearing about these deaths because the news media wants us to hear about that.
Exactly.
advertisers. But a lot more is happening, and I'll let Sanjay ji talk more about what he's doing that none of us are aware of.
Thank you, Rajiv. And Sanjay ji.
Namaskar. Though very few people know about what we are doing, it is because the aim of what we are doing there is not to project what we are doing, because on ground, if we start working like Jews and other people, we don't want to propagate it. Like, we have identified how many Kashmiri families who have not migrated, and one of our focuses has been on them and their children. We want them to develop economically there. So there have been families whose houses had fallen. We have built them. Our organization has built them. There's been help from Kashmiri Overseas Association under Dr. Archana Kakru has also done a lot of help in encouraging us to do that. Dr. Rajiv Panta was there last time. And we are working along with the Muslims. Like last time, and when Mr. Vijay ji was also there, I had got all of them together to have a perspective. Vijay ji was there with us this time, and last time Dr. Pandita. Now, just 3 months back, we have got the Kashmiri Pandits into into tourism. We have purchased 4 Innovas, and these are the tourist agents. They are going to be acting as a tourist guides, and we're going to do the reservation through them. We also opened 4 shops in Srinagar city where the KPs who are not migrated are operating there. So a lot of actions are happening. We are giving them education. We have sent 300 children from Jammu and Kashmir into army public schools and boarding. That was last year. So a lot of things are happening, but we don't want the people to come to know that Kashmiri Pandits are getting consolidated in Kashmir, so that there's a security problem. Yeah.
Sushilji, can we?
This must be from Srinagar.
Sushilji, can we mute the background noise, please? The call?
Yes.
Can we mute it? Oh well, I guess
lot of things are happening in Kashmir, and all of you are welcome to Kashmir. I have a place in Kashmir. I can take everybody around.
That's
and
wonderful.
Let them see the place. Let them see there's no problem of security. There are stray incidents. The day when the Shopian incident happened, Vijay ji was there in a hotel, and I was in Shopian that time. In fact, I have invested myself also in Shopian. I purchased land during this time around 5 years back, one apple orchard, and people have to invest. We can't depend on the government if we want to economically. The Kashmir has been taken over economically. We have to invest in economically. We have to earn money from there, and we have to make people earn money through business rather than getting a PM package or an employment. And we have to get that sense into them. So that is what we have been working, and that is what is the door to Kashmir. That is my opinion. That is my feeling. Otherwise, remain away from politics, economically develop, generate money for the people there, and get them into the business. There are a lot of things. We have been working there since 2008. A lot of projects we have done. So
thank you, Sanjay.
So that is all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sanjay ji. Sanjay ji has done an amazing job. He's the foundation, Kakani Foundation. We work very closely with them, and he has helped us in a lot of projects in the last 2 years.
We salute him for coming up at 6:30 and attending this program, sir.
He needs a salute for many other things that he has done for us, our children, helping us with arranging the camps there and all that. A lot of work Sanjay ji has been doing with us, and I really, really want to thank him. Having said that, I think there might be a few more people who want to. Sanjay ji, anyone wants to have a question?
Ravi ji has raised his hand. Ravi Rego.
Okay, so what is the question? Okay, towards the end, right now?
Has he sent the question to you, Neetu?
No, he has not put the question on the chat. He's just raised his hand.
Okay, so I don't see any new message.
No,
Okay.
there are no more new questions.
Okay, then I think it's fine. Yeah.
So, well, I just want to conclude the program by just saying that one of the things that Vijayji said is that the history and the memories are etched in our brains. And that's the best way to transfer the oral history and the mental history that we have in our brains into writing something, because that will in future be our history. So I urge everyone who is at least half a good writer, please, write your memoirs, write your, memories from your childhood or something, and let's turn that into a repository. I've been telling everyone that that is our best shot at creating our own history, because if we don't write our history, others will, and that always will be tainted. So let's, do that. Pick up the pens and write it. So again, thank you, Vijayji. You have opened up a very important aspect and discussion, which I hope that in future we will continue to do a discussion on Kashmir. We will invite other guests also as well. Prior to this, we had Sushil Panditji on one of our programs a couple of months back. So I invite all of you to be a part of that, and let's together decide, and let's together, kind of think about what would be the kind of important issues that we as a community living overseas, should be tackling, especially in the younger generations, and work with people like Vijayji, Sanjayji, and so many others who are on the ground, who have developed resources on the ground. How do we connect those resources? How do we gain from them? And more importantly, I think what we should be talking about is that how do we connect to the families who are living in Kashmir, who are our only hope of regeneration of the culture in our homeland. With that, I hope that if no one has any questions, we will conclude the program. Again, I thank all of you for joining today. And I thank Vijayji for spending this much time with us. And I also thank Sanjay, who is traveling to India day after to get some preparations done. Thanks again, and have a wonderful Friday and the weekend. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vijayji.